everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spilling the Teeth Quick Sips. Really excited by today's episode. Grant, it's great to have you on the show. I'm sure everyone knows you, to be honest. But for listeners who don't know you and viewers that don't know you, can you give us a quick snapshot about your background and how you came to launch things like RoboReception? What's your story?
So basically, I left school with some very poor A levels, and I managed to scrape my way into doing a podiatry degree, which is, as everybody knows, a chiropody degree. And from then on, that was a diploma. It became a degree. So I managed to get into dentistry on the back of that. Haven't done a science in my life, so it was quite a struggle to go through dentistry. So I ended up qualifying 27 as a dentist from Dundee. I moved down to Penzance because I wanted to go surfing and have the freedom of what dentistry can give you. And from that point, I was just interested in the business of dentistry as well as the dentistry itself. I do like the clinical side, but I've always wanted to look outside the box. And I think that's how and why I created RoboReception and all the things around dentistry. Because dentistry does that, it gives you the freedom of being able to look at things and not just clinically.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's one of the beautiful things about dentistry. It's full of entrepreneurs of different backgrounds and different means. And, it's super cool to think about all the things that have come out of what feels like a simple science, but no, that's fantastic to hear your background. Like I said, great to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about all things culture and teamwork, but how, the new world of AI can come into that, and tools like RoboReception, how they can help you out and sort of change your own practices so that you can become that practice of the future. So let's dive right into that. I mean, we've talked about how fast dentistry is changing. We talked about how fast the people are changing in dentistry, but from your perspective, what do you think is the biggest challenge that all of our practices are probably struggling with right now? And where do you think that's kind of taking us?
Do you know, that's an interesting question. And I think I do get asked that a lot. And I think what the struggles today and how to overcome those struggles today will be a different problem tomorrow. So I remember when I started dentistry was such a big profession to be in. And there was a lot of respect and there was a lot of marketing respect. So if you'd asked me when I'd started, it certainly would have been marketing and advertising was the struggle. I remember back in my father's day, who was a retired dentist, their proud moment for marketing and advertising was being able to put your gold plate up. And then when I came along, there were the yellow pages. And so I used to put in the adverts in the yellow pages upside down to be noticed. So, even though back then I was trying to find a way around the constraints that we were met. So back then I would have said marketing and advertising. So today, when you fast forward, everybody is, or when I say should be doing marketing and advertising, not everybody does. A lot of dental practices, well, I've never done a day's marketing in my life. I rely on word of mouth, which are solid. That's a solid business. But there's a lot of new squats coming. There's people who are, young dentists with a lot of energy and a lot of ambition, know and study marketing, even as dental students. And so I think the struggles of today is finding new ways to not only get new patients, but to be able to look after the ones you've got. So have a good PMS system, have a good system, be able to track the patients you've got, because that's the gold mine. That's where the challenges should be, is discovering new ways of encouraging those patients to come back in who haven't been to, because you've spent the money on the marketing, you've done it all. They're all out there. You've got that trust. So I think the challenge is finding new ways to encouraging those patients who have already got your trust, already answered that advert, to be able to come into the dental practice.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And it kind of leads me on to my next question quite nicely, because when we talk about all of these, new ideas, but for getting people through the door, getting bookings, filling that white space, one thing that I think probably every principal and practice owner worries about is getting the team behind that. They could be the best entrepreneur in the world, they could be the best business owner in the world and have all the right intentions. But if they've got a team and a culture that doesn't want to get behind that in the same way, or doesn't necessarily know how to, it becomes a real struggle. So I don't want you to give away all the secrets of your course, but what's one real way where a practice can actually get that team culture and that team mindset going?
I think you're right. The biggest challenge is getting the teams behind you. And I think over the years, the most stressful parts of my profession has been the frustrations of not being able to get those teams behind you. And we can talk about bonuses. So a bonus system, which I think would get more people on board, has to consider almost the psychological makeup of all your staff to go, okay, you want to spend more time with your family, right? I'll give you a day with your family if you can get me 10 Google reviews. You want to earn more money? Okay, let's sort out a bonus for you and you get more money at the end of the month. One size doesn't fit all. But I think the biggest secret, to get everybody on board is to bloody well know your staff and find out what they want. And when you find out what they want, you can then either decide to provide that or not. Now I'm saying this easily. I never got it right. I managed to sell the practice. I've sold my practices to Portman and allow them to worry about it. But I tried before I sold. I was starting to think around that sort of modality. I thinking around that sort of process. And like I said, that's been my biggest stress over the years is actually having staff stay with you. I've had staff leaving me after 20, 30 years and giving their notice in between patients. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge. And a lot of people just want to come to work. It's a tough one. So, I don't know the answer, but I think if I was 18 again and starting a practice, I think I'd try and learn the passions of my individual staff and then fulfill those to get them on board.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And we see that in all different industries, right? Startups, start and fail based on the team they get behind and the leadership that they provide. So I think knowing your people and having that HR mindset, even when you don't necessarily have a HR department,
Yeah.
it's that's super, super good advice. And sort of on the same line, a lot of practice you see, they don't actually have a USP. Yeah, your USP isn't I do dentistry because that isn't unique. It's just an SP. How do you make a USP, I guess, for a dental practice, and then how do you actually make that an everyday part of patient care?
I think that's another good question. I think to find what your unique selling point is, I always think it's nothing to do with dentistry. It can, I always think you have to find out what your passion is in life. And it doesn't matter what business you do, whether you drill teeth, whether you do a business outside dentistry. I think you have to find out what your why is. So why are you doing this? What drives you to do what you're doing? It can be as simple as mine. I can't stand bullies. I can't stand it. And I think bullying, sticking up for people. When I started dentistry, I wanted to do cheap private dentistry. So my why was affordable dentistry, to be informed and to have the choice. And I could carry that through all my businesses, and I have. So we will provide all of our RoboReception services far cheaper than our competitors. And I think for me, your USP has to be in the why you are doing it and not necessarily the what, which is exactly what you've said. And how it comes across online with your colleagues can be completely different. So my colleagues will probably think when I was doing cheap dentistry, I was trying to undercut them. And that's okay with me, and people don't know me. And I'm sure people will have preconceived ideas about me. But I always think you can't just find someone's unique selling point. It's deep within them, I think. And I think that's where the true entrepreneur comes from. And the true entrepreneur can also sell that unique selling point to their members of staff so they can truly understand where that's coming from. And that's exposing yourself. That's exposing your feelings that you can get hurt to staff if you really expose how you feel and the voice that you want to put out about your business. It's a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and something you don't often hear. Like when does your business coach become your therapist? And I think maybe when you're
Exactly.
choosing your business coach, you
Yeah.
should choose wisely like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, speaking about that kind of emotional side, like that is the hard part is being vulnerable. And when those challenges like really set in, and dentistry's full of challenges, and unfortunately, it's full of poor mental health, and stress always is a big part of that. How do you feel would be the best way for someone to like really regain control over the things that are causing them that stress without losing that same entrepreneurial spark? They've got their USP sorted, they've got their team sorted, they're doing well, but the better they do, the more stressful it gets. How do they grab control? Help get themselves de-stressed, but don't lose that entrepreneurial spark that's kept the momentum up.
Is it the entrepreneurship and the momentum that's caused the stress? I don't know. I think that back in the day when I remember like yesterday, decision-making processes back in those days, I think they were saying that dentistry had the highest suicide, alcohol and divorce rate. So dentistry, yeah, absolutely. It is a stressful profession. Every day they come in and patients say they hate you. They don't want to be there. You're providing pain. You're trying to sell pain. You're working on a very, very small part of the body. And it's very, very, very lonely. Dentistry is an extremely lonely profession. So that's the job. Now we go along and go, right, now the entrepreneurship, now you're running a business. Now you've got to now control staff. Staff are coming through. Staff are asking you questions. So over the years, like I'm very, very open about my mental health. I've had difficulties in my past and I've spent tens of thousands on therapy and, but it wasn't the dentistry. And it wasn't being an entrepreneur, because I've managed to go through my life and build practices, sell them. I've done very well out of dentistry. It's been me that's been the thing that's caused me problems. And when I recognized that, I then went to therapy. I then worked out what was wrong with me mentally, and then the rest of it all fell into place. And it all wasn't so hard. So I think that probably no matter what job I did, things would have cropped up over life as they do. You get to your 30s and you're still, I was still a child. You get to 40s and life begins then, because you start seeing the unhelpful patterns that you've created through life. And I think by the time you get to 50, you think, sod it, I'm going to stop doing these patterns. So I think it's just a life cycle that we all go through. And we all have to accept that we have these life cycles. And I think that if during those life cycles, you then get help when help's required, I think that is the best way to sort of negotiate yourself through a very, very stressful job. It's all right. It's normal. It's normal to feel anxious. It's normal to feel worried about that crown prep, or worried that your accounts aren't as good as what it appears to be by the dentist down the road who's posting their Ferrari and their Rolex watches, which I don't do. I don't like that type of approach. I don't like it when people are posting those, because it does put an awful lot of stress on the younger dentists. And I
Yeah.
prefer to keep my life a little bit more private, but that doesn't help. And I think people just need to know who to speak to, who they trust, to be able to go, it's normal what you're going through. Your bank account isn't always 100 grand every month in credit, and everybody can afford Ferraris and all that sort of stuff. I think that just know who you can go to, and get help when you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all need to be great advocates for that in dentistry, making sure that you find help when you need it and you find the right person for you. There's plenty of people out there that, do that mindfulness, but specifically for dentists as well. So if you feel that you need something specific, that's super important. But, outside help as well is always great. So great piece of advice there. One of the other things that you can do is finding tools that help you. Is there a practical piece of advice that you can give around tools that can be used to help reduce some stress and save time and, bring efficiencies that, maybe someone could even look at this week?
I think it's important to make sure the patient journey's mapped, however it is, from the moment the inquiry comes in all the way through to getting your Google review at the end of the day. Now, I didn't come on today to say how amazing Dentally is. I didn't come on to say how amazing RoboReception is. But if you're going to use a PMS, if you're going to use a system, you've got to make sure it's been around. You've got to make sure it's got good backup. You've got to make sure that what you need is there. And I think that, Dentally is good. I've used Dentally for years. I know that there is some good developments coming out. AI is there. But, I think the most important thing about any system you use is got to be not about replacing humans. It's got to be about improving the face-to-face. So if you've got a good system from when the inquiry comes in all the way through, so the reception aren't all muddled down doing low-end tasks, so they can do more face-to-face stuff, because that's what sells dentistry. And you've got to be able to do a good patient journey from the beginning to an end. But whatever happens, it has to have a good track record. It has to have good backup, and it has to be designed and developed by people who know dentistry. And that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I'm with you on the lack of advertising. If I see someone at one of the three big shows that we see in the UK, or the same abroad, I will always say to people when they come to me, sell me Dentally, or sell me our latest feature, and I go, you know what, I don't actually need to sell you the feature. I just need to talk to you about what your outcome is, and you might walk away
Yes.
from this conversation and say, that's not the system for me. But as you say, like if you have the backing of some backup of what that system has
Yep.
historically.
Yep.
You've got the backing of it. It does the thing for you and it achieves what you want to achieve. And you feel you've got that safety net. I think that's always the thing to go with, because, life's too short to add more stresses to life. So
It is.
why not try and take them away?
It is. And the biggest thing I think that worries me today about all the softwares that are coming out on the market, they'll have a nifty little thing. And you know what? That nifty little thing will never get used. Why? Because dentists are creatures of habit. They'll go back to the job and they'll go back to doing what they're doing from 8 till 5. And that nifty thing is what a lot of people are using to sell their products. And that nifty thing is rarely something that will be utilized by the dentist. So I always think, look what you need, look at the solid things you need, define what you need, and then you'll find the right systems in place. And that's what makes an easier life, less stress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, outside of the tech, you already touched on it. People want the human element. Some teams worry that tech's going to replace them. How do you coach teams to go, what, actually, this is a really hard job. We've already talked about the mental health element of this. This is only going to help you and allow you to have a bit more of that human life. What's your coaching behind that?
So really, I think that happened the other day because our AI can answer the telephone. It can now book, and we've done it this morning. Our AI can now book patients directly into the dentally, and which is a massive thing. And up to now, it's been great. The staff have loved the AI. It's been really cool. It can take calls, all that sort of stuff. And then it happened because the staff went, "That's going to take my job soon." And then I had to say, just exactly what you've just said, Dan. I said, no, it will mean that you've got less time on the telephone, less time doing low ticket items, and you can start talking to patients because AI will not take over the world. It will not take over human interaction. Why are we trying to create an AI that can mimic humans? It can sound like humans. I think we're going in the wrong direction with AI because it never will. The more human an AI sounds, the more scared people are going to be because they'll ring up and go, "Is this human? That's weird." So I think it has to have an element of roboticness still to it. And I think that if it can do all the low ticket items, staff can be reassured that they'll be able to have more face to face interactions. And that's what I think AI is going to be. I think it will put pressure on staff who don't care. I think it will put pressure on staff that come in late, can't be bothered, to staff that want to do a good job, want to do face-to-face interactions with patients. They are going to work really well with AI. So AI is not going to change the world. It won't change the world. Certainly not in my time. I think when I sell AI and all the automations that we're talking about, I make sure that patients know about it. So they get a letter why we're doing AI, to make sure it's not an answer phone, to make sure we don't miss your call, to make sure we can, because like we said, we can do the tasks that patients like when they're on the runs. They can book patients in. They can do all the tasks that some people really like quickly, and they don't have to wait to speak to someone. But on the other end of it, I just tell staff that, look, all this automation all the way through, you can have more face-to-face. You can have more fun because we all need human interaction. And I think a job can be made more enjoyable with human interaction. And if you can sell people that, and you are actually selling the truth, it's easy. And that's how I've done it, and it's always worked. But as long as people are aware, patients are made aware, staff are made aware, that is the USP. That's what we're trying to create. It's easy. Staff are liking it because it does help. It means that their numbers go up, that they're not missing calls, that their conversion rates are going up. I mean, and then you can link it into bonuses or whatever bonus that may be, even if it's a bloody thank you from area manager. That's when they realize it's there to help and not to replace, because it isn't. AI will not replace good, hardworking members of staff. There's no way. There is absolutely no way.
No. And I think that's, super, super key. We've already talked about dentistry being quite a lonely profession, and that's not just for dentists. That can be from the receptionist. That's the first call where someone walks in, they're angry, they've got to go to the dentist. The first person they see is the receptionist. Imagine getting a bit more time back to actually be able to care for that patient. Would you like a glass of water? Would you like me to take you into a private room so you can calm down just before your appointment? Like all of these
Exactly.
things, you get to take the loneliness out of it for you, but also for the patient as well. So I see nothing but good coming from this, and I think that any tool that can give you time back to be a human is a good tool. So we're coming to the end of our questions here, and one thing I like to ask people, what's something that a dentist listening right now can take away from this conversation? What's a really actionable piece of advice that they can get? And I think that what we've talked about today really is like the struggles of being stuck between, burnout and exhaustion, but desperately wanting to build something brilliant. What's the simplest first move, the one piece of advice that they can take from our whole conversation we've had today, that a change that they can make today, a change that they can go, turn off this podcast and go action?
Can I do two?
But I'll give you two. Go on. You've earned it.
Okay. Last year or the year before, we did 200 mystery shops on dentists, and part of our process that we go through a RoboReception, and 198 failed, which meant that reception is your key, is the key to your entire business. So, in my opinion, the reception team are as important as the nurses, as important as the associates. They're the ones that are fielding all those inquiries. When I speak to dentists and they go, "Oh, I've got this dragon on reception," it's like that. It's destroying your business. If I could give anyone any advice, it's to go in on Monday morning and work out how they can sort their reception out to have it, not necessarily a 5-star experience, just a nice, pleasant, welcoming reception team. From there, just a great patient journey, whatever that system may be. So processes and reception, but start with reception.
Yeah, can't build a house without good foundations. I
Yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
super, super
Absolutely.
key. Well, Grant, it's been fantastic having you on this episode. So many insights. We went through a real emotional roller coaster at one point as well, which is always fun. But really, really great insights. Don't want you to leave without giving us the lowdown on where they can go to learn more about you, where they can go more to learn about RoboReception?
Yeah, www.roboreception.co.uk. You can go there. We're going to Venice next month because we're going to the global networks to show how our AI is now taken over, and we're moving out of just dentistry and we're going into GP. So there's loads of things happening. But please just contact me on Facebook or Donna, the partner of RoboReception, or visit the website.
Grant, thank you so much. Really great to have you on the show. Looking forward to hopefully talking to you again in the future. And yeah, everyone, thanks for listening.